everyone, welcome to Serving Up Plumbing with David Butler. Today we're going to be talking about CSST pipe. Now we've had a video that I've done previously on the channel that had lots of information about CSST, but today we're going to specifically be showing how to put the fittings on it and join it together. Before we do that, please hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and let me know your comments on what you'd like to see in the future. Now let's learn how to put CSST together. So in our previous video, we talked about the different types of CSST. This is first generation, the older CSST. And of course, CSST stands for what? Corrugated stainless steel tubing. Actually came from the space shuttle technology for oxygen fuel lines. And then they converted it to using it for natural gas. Well, this is a very convenient pipe. How do we put it together? Now the black CSST means it's arc resistant. The old yellow CSST, remember, was not arc resistant. We had some problems come about that with all the lightning strikes in North Texas and other places, it would blow a hole in it. Well, then they invented the second generation and third generations that were arc resistant. Therefore, we're going to talk primarily about this. Although, when we talk about installing it, the fittings that fit the black in gas type will also fit the yellow gas type. You cannot mix and match your brands though. This happens to be Parflex, Parker brand. This is Flash Shield Plus. We cannot mix this with the same fitting. Now you can use a CSST gas type fitting, then a black iron coupling with a male adapter like this, and then use a fitting for Parker Parflex, and you can make a coupling and a transition to two different pipes. So remember that. But we're going to be talking today about how do we cut this, how do we do it, how do we put a fitting on it. One of the most important things, we talk about cleaning pipe and all of that with soldering and brazing and anything. We always want to make sure it's a clean pipe. Same thing here. We want to make sure this is clean. But in this case, one of the most important things that you do with this is the cut. And I recommend having some good gas type or CSST cutters of some brand. These happen to be gas type brand. Apollo makes a really good brand you can buy online at Amazon. I'm sure all brands of the CSST make their own type of cutters. In a pinch, you can cut it with a regular copper cutter, although you have to be extremely careful because you can make the cut not be correct, and then that's going to cause you a leak. The difference with the CSST cutters is the wheel. They look just like copper cutters, but the wheels are different. The rollers are a little different. The wheel is much thinner and sharper for stainless pipe. So let's cut some pipe. You're going to have to cut through the jacket and everything, and you always want to make sure that you get your pipe in between the corrugations. Now what do I mean by in between the corrugations? As you can see right here, this pipe is corrugated. So you have to cut between the corrugations, and you have to get your cutter wheel going in that area. Therefore, I've got my cutter in here. Now I'm going to cut it. You have to go very slowly and be patient. I'm turning the cutters very little as I go around. And you can listen to it and start hearing the cut once it gets a little further in. I'm cutting through the stainless now. And again, I'm barely tightening this as I go around. Now when you get to where there's just a little left, you can roll the cutters back and forth like that. Be real careful. Most people, when they cut something like this, then they want to just bend it back and break it off. Well, if we do that, we're going to damage the edge of the pipe. What we need is a perfectly clean edge right along here in the center. So if you're going to break it, which I don't recommend doing if you don't have to, if you're going to break it, you want a very small movement right there. And don't bend it back very far. If you bend it way back like this, we've destroyed our cut, which I just did to that one right there. Now I can go ahead and break it off like that. But if you look inside really close, we've got a flat edge on the cut right there, and it's going to cause us to have a leak when we install it. All right, now we've got us a good cut. What do we do next? Well, we need to trim the jacket back. As you can see on this one, we've got the jacket trimmed back here. Now, this is Flash Shield Plus. We only trim the jacket back, two of the corrugations. They make this cool little tool, and most of the manufacturers have some sort of tool. This you can buy very cheaply. In fact, sometimes they'll even give them to you when you're having a big buy of fittings. This is for 3/4 and 1/2 inch. So we're going to put it in the 1/2 inch in. You butt it up to where it's going to go. You close this on top of it, squeeze down really tight, and roll it around it. It'll trim that plastic just right. You take your razor knife and you very gently get under the edge of your cut, and you can get it off just like that. Now we have 2 corrugations exposed right there, and that's exactly how it should be. Now, in the event you don't have one of these cool tools that they have, I do recommend getting it and keeping it on your toolkit, but you can use a razor knife. Again, you want to count back 2 rings, and you can put your razor knife right there and then trim around it with your razor knife. Just be careful, you don't want to cut too deep because you don't want to damage your pipe. We trim around it, you can use your razor knife, we get the 2 rings, and we've cut it. We didn't have to have the fancy little tool. The tool is nice, makes it fast and easy, but you can do it without it if you don't have it. All right, now, how do we install the fitting on it? So, these fittings have a nut and then an insert piece like this. This piece will come too with a brass connection on it generally, and you have to break that little connection apart. Now, this fitting is critical to how it works. We don't use pipe dope on these or anything else. They usually come with some grease on them. It has 2 different ways. It goes like this, and you can see it like this. Now, the way we want to install it is right on behind the first corrugation. We want to set that piece in place. And then the opposite side, we want to mate up to it so that it ends up looking just like that. You do need to make sure and put your nut on first if your pipe's connected to something. Then we take this and we're going to insert it in our fitting. Now remember, make sure that first corrugation is behind your fitting. You don't want it installed, and this happens a lot with guys, it will feel like it's in the right place if you put it over the first corrugation. It needs to be behind the first corrugation. Then you're going to take this and push it on, work it on a little bit, and then start tightening your nut. Now what that's going to do to the ends of this cut that you made, and the reason it needs to be so good, it's going to actually fold that last corrugation in just like this. And it's going to make almost what we would consider to be like a flare joint. And that's all done by when you tighten the fitting down. So we pull the fitting in, tighten it up as much as we can by hand, get our wrenches out. Now ideally, I like to use crescent wrenches on these so they don't put tool marks all over the fittings. If we use a pair of channel locks with it, we can do that, but put the pair of channel locks on the part of the pipe that you're not going to be moving and re-grabbing. That way you make one bite. Put your crescent wrench on the nut that you're going to be turning, tighten it just about as tight as you can get it with this size tools. Now you don't need to go get 18-inch pipe wrenches. Let's tighten it down really tight, because as we're doing that, we're actually bending and folding that flare in. I got it really tight now. That's what your joint should look like when you finish. Make sure that the jacket is up underneath where the fitting fits. And the reason for that, just like this, is because that's what makes it arc resistant. Inside this jacket there are layers. There's a layer of metal in between, sandwiched in between 2 layers of membrane. What that does is that gives it basically a grounding shield or a bonding shield. So that if there is ever any lightning strike on the home, that energy will be transferred through that bonding shield and reduce the effect of it so that it doesn't burn a hole or blow a hole through your CSST pipe. Refer to that previous video we talked about for bonding on pipes that are not arc resistant type CSST. So let's pull it apart right quick and take a look at how it looks on the inside. If you look very closely on that, you can see it's a very smooth, curled in, almost like a flare. That's why your cut has to be so good, because if you don't get it cut right, it won't be making a good seal. You can run your finger around this outer edge. If you've got a nice, smooth roll on it all the way around, nothing on the front edge, you've got a good connection for CSST. Now, the one thing about it also is you can reuse these fittings. If you had to reuse one in a pinch, you could reuse it. Now, I have had it before also where I have a bad fitting. So, if you're going out to do a CSST job, don't just buy one of the fitting you're going to use. At least buy two so you'll have a backup in case you have a problem with a fitting or a possible defect with a fitting. If you've tried to put it together and take it apart 3 times, throw that fitting away and get you a new fitting. Let's try it with a new one. Make sure your cut's correct and make sure you tighten it down super tight. Remember, we don't use pipe dope on these. They come greased. If you wanted to use a little plumber's grease on the nut, you could just to make it tighten a little easier, but we don't use pipe dope on it. When it's finished, you can leak test it with a sniffer. Sometimes soap bubbles won't show on this because around the outside joint, there's actually a pretty large gap, as you can see. And the soap may just disappear inside it. So your gas sniffer is the best test when you're testing CSST. Now, there are special precautions you need to do on installation and how to protect this, bonding, all of those things are in the video we shot about all things CSST. So make sure and go check out that video. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope now you know how to use CSST. It can be a great pipe or it can be a really bad pipe if you don't install it correctly, just like with any type of plumbing. Hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up if you like this. Go out there and install some CSST. Anytime you do work with gas piping, CSST or anything, it's required to be tested and inspected by your local inspector in most cases. The gas company will have to come out, turn the gas back on if it's been shut off, just to make sure everything's safe. We never want to take any chances with gas. No leak is acceptable. Thanks again for watching. Just tell your friends the Butler did it.